But now I would like to pass over to one more topic I wanted to discuss with you. It's our positions in African countries, in African continent. So from the latest information on his second Africa tour, Ukraine's foreign minister Dmytro Kuleba visited Morocco, Ethiopia, Rwanda, Mozambique and Nigeria. Ukraine's diplomatic push for Africa is part of the larger New Horizons strategy aimed at expanding opportunities for the Ukrainian state, business and citizens in Latin America, African and Asian countries. Africa matters for Ukraine, as the tour demonstrated. It was also a historic occasion because the Ukrainian foreign minister visited almost all of the nations for the first time in history. The tour had three major goals: to rely support for President Zelensky peace formula, to revitalize relations with African nations, and to build mutually respectful and mutually beneficial relations, expanding opportunities of economic and political cooperation. So Ukrainian-African relations are currently at their peak in decades of Ukrainian independence, with the true Ukrainian-African renaissance underway. So we understand that we had a lot of problem with this continent. Just remember the absence of ambassadors in some countries and other diplomatic gaps. How fast we improve this situation, your point of view? And the second question is how our cooperation with Africa differs from our cooperation with Global South. Is it powerful, or we still have some problems? What should we do fast as we can?
Well, I think it's too early to assess the situation. I cannot say if we improved or not, or did improve the situation, because, for now, currently, I don't see that there were fundamental improvements on this track. Yes, I mean, several visits were made, historic ones, which is good. But that's all. I mean, I don't think, for me, it is not a criteria. These are not criteria for saying that, everything now is like super great and, we don't have problems anymore. No, we have a lot of them, not only in Africa, but in many non-Western regions with which we, unfortunately, has been pretty much passive and, we didn't manage to develop normal, stable, and predictable relations. In my opinion, what we lack is the basic, let's call it the basic infrastructure. So this means that diplomatic infrastructure. So we need the basis to lay down a basis, and then we can proceed with deepening or expanding our relations with certain countries. This means that we need to establish regular political communication with the African continent. Because we very often organize. For example, we can organize a tour by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but then go silent for 10 years. And that's all. So this is how it happened, actually, in 30 years of our independence. So we had like one or two visits in some 5-10 years ago, and that's all. And that was the end of it. So we need a regular political communication with these countries. We need, of course, we lack embassies, we lack personnel in embassies, because again, one thing is just to open an embassy in a country, but another one, if you want to open an embassy with 2 or 3 people working in, for example, Nigeria, this doesn't have any sense, because what will they? How will they handle this country when there are 3 of them, and for example, they don't have the means and the capacities to do that? While, for example, our Russian neighbors, they have much bigger embassies with more staff there, with interpreters, analysts, military representatives and representatives of big corporations. So I think that this is, again, we need to differentiate these. So the basic infrastructure is about embassies, it's about regular communication, it's about certain connections on horizontal connections on the lower level, for example, on the level of the ministries, of certain agencies, on academic ties between the countries, so that we know more about this country and they will know more about us. This is also about information and analytical ties because, for example, we lack certain think tanks and academic institutions dedicated to, making research about Africa, actually, and Ukraine ties. So this kind of basic infrastructure should be built first of all, and I think this is what Ukraine is going to do in the near future, in the years to come. Actually, this is what I see Kuleba is trying to do, and then after that we can, start thinking about what we need to do in Africa, deeper. Where should we go deeper? Where should we, leave the things as they are? What countries should be more strategic to us in terms of what kind of resources do we need from them? Because this is the question, actually. So it's not a question just to open like 10 plus more embassies and that's all. It's a question of what kind of resources do we need from Africa? Where should we find them? And if we find them, how should we, extract them? And use them. So this is what it is about. In my opinion, there are three main reasons why we need Africa. First of all, it's political cooperation. So it's like more than 50 countries that has every country has a vote in international organizations, included in the UN, which we need. Secondly, this is a matter of trade and economy, so there are plenty of resources in Africa. It's a very rich continent which can provide us with resources not only for our post-war reconstruction, which is one of the primary challenges for us in the near future, but also like long-term, if we, for example, want to build new clusters of economy or industry, which I hope we do, and we will. And thirdly, I think for now, our interest lays in the military sphere. Weapons in many African countries have Soviet-made and Western-made weapons, which we maybe can either buy or either purchase or make together, in joint enterprises. So these are the three main interests for the near future. But of course, for this, we need basic infrastructure, which we lack right now, unfortunately.